Good afternoon, Titans. This is Mr. Sturts, and we're talking about Lesson 3.5, Graphing Linear Equations in Slope-Intercept Form. Student journal's up to page 31. We're going to start with some vocab here. Write these 5 down. They give you spots for them in your student journal. Okay, pause the video, write these down. First thing we're going to talk about is slope, and the slope of a non-vertical line passing through 2 points. And how we're going to refer to these 2 points is x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. Is the ratio of rise, which is our change in y that you just wrote down, to the run, which is the change in the x coordinate. Okay, so our equation is listed right there, the change in y over the change in x. Okay, and so that's y sub 2, which means our second point, second y coordinate minus our first y coordinate, over our second x coordinate minus our first x coordinate. Okay, when the line rises from left to right, we say it's positive, the slope is positive, and when it falls from left to right, we say it's a negative slope. All right, the slope of each line. As we look at that line from left to right, it rises. Okay, so we're going to say that is a positive slope. And to find the slope, we're going to use our slope formula, which we said y sub 2. So in this case, it doesn't matter which point you use, okay, as long as you're consistent. If you say y sub 2, we also have to take our x sub 2 from that same point. So if we start with our first one up here, let's say our y sub 2 is going to be 2, now minus our first y coordinate, which is also a negative 2. And we're going to write that over our change in our x values, which since we picked y sub 2 up top, we have to use the same x one. And that is going to be 3 minus, now a negative 3, our second coordinate. Okay, and if we solve this, 2 minus a negative 2, let's change them both to plus, that's the same as addition. So we have a 4 over, same with the denominator here, 3 plus 3 is 6. If we simplify or reduce that fraction to 2/3, notice that's a positive number, so we have a positive slope. Okay, and our second one, it falls from left to right. So we're going to say that is a negative slope. And we're going to use the same formula. Okay, let's use the top one again as our sub 2. Let's go ahead and say 2 minus a negative 1, our change in our y's, over, if we're using the top one, we're going to say 0 minus 2. Okay, and 2 minus a negative 1, again, is going to be addition. So we have 3 over 0 minus 2 is a negative 2. Okay, and you can leave it as an improper fraction. Notice it's a negative number, so we have a negative slope. Now we have a couple tables here. We just need to find the slope. Okay, how can we find the slope of each line from the table? All we need to do is pick out 2 points. Okay, let's pick out, now it doesn't matter. Whatever combination you use is going to work. It's going to be the same slope because it's a straight line. So if we use this, let's say this is our second and this is our first. Okay, so we're going to be consistent. We're going to say 8, which is y sub 2, minus 2, which is y sub 1, over, now we use the top one, so we still need to use the top one first, 10 minus 13. If we do the math here, 8 minus 2 is 6, 10 minus 13 is a negative 3. And so we are going to get, if we reduce that down, we're going to get a negative 3 over 1. Okay, and that's our slope, so a slope of negative 3. All right, now B, let's pick out 2 again. We can do the last 2 again. Okay, and sometimes it helps to label what's your 2 and your 1, just so you remember what order to go in. So if we go down here, we're going to say 2 as our top one, our y sub 2, minus 2 again, over 3 minus 5. And if we do the math there, 2 minus 2 is 0, over negative 2. Now we know 0 divided by any number is 0. Okay, so we're going to have a slope of 0 here. Now a slope of 0 is going to be a horizontal line. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now let's do the last one here. Let's keep it consistent. Let's do the last 2 points again. Okay, so we have our 2 and our 1. Now we have 6 y sub 2 minus 9 y sub 1 over negative 3 minus a negative 3. Okay, don't lose track of your negatives. Again, minus a negative is the same as addition. 6 minus 9 is negative 3 over negative 3 plus 3, we get a 0. Now, when a 0 is in the denominator, it's going to be undefined. Okay, there's nothing we can multiply by 0 to get to negative 3, so our slope here is going to be undefined. And that's whenever you have a 0 in your denominator there. So here are our slopes. Positive slope rises from left to right. Negative slope falls from left to right. Slope of 0 is horizontal. And an undefined slope is vertical, straight up and down. Slope-intercept form, we've been talking about this before. Y equals mx plus b. That is our slope-intercept form. Okay, m is our slope. B is our y-intercept. Remember, y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, so again, m is our slope, b is our y-intercept. Those are the two things we want to pick out from this form. Okay, so a couple examples here. Find the slope and the y-intercept of the graph of each equation here. Now, this first one's already in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So we can go ahead and remember we said m was our slope and b was our y-intercept. So when it's in this form, it's very simple. We're going to pick out the 3, which is the number right before the x, the coefficient. So that's our slope. So our slope is 3. And our y-intercept now, it's a minus 4. Okay, remember in the equation it's addition. So if we have a negative 4, or a minus 4 there, we have to remember to keep that negative. So our y-intercept is actually a negative 4. All right, let's look at the second one here. It's not quite in slope-intercept form, okay, but there's something we need to add in. We can rewrite this as 0 times x, which is just 0, plus 6.5. Okay, now it's in slope-intercept form. It looks like down in the bottom there. So our slope here is going to be 0, because that's in our spot for m, and our y-intercept is going to be, it's a positive now, so a positive 6.5. All right, and the last one here, we need to rearrange things to get it in slope-intercept form. So let's move this 5x over. Let's add it to both sides. So we're left with a negative y equals 5x minus 2. Okay, now it's a negative y. That needs to be a positive 5 or positive y to match that form. If there's no number in front of the y, we can assume there's a 1. So if we divide by a negative 1, make sure we divide the whole right side by a negative 1. We're going to get y equals a negative 5x. Now a negative 2 divided by a negative 1 is a positive, so plus 2. Okay, and then our last step, again, slope. It's in slope-intercept form, so we can pick them right out. Our slope is going to be a negative 5. Our y-intercept is going to be a positive 2. Okay, so there are our answers there. We first need to put it in slope-intercept form, then we can pick them out. All right, and our last example here, we need to graph this and then find our x-intercept. Okay, before we can graph it, we need to put it in slope-intercept form. Okay, so we want it in y equals mx plus b. Let's move our 2x over. If we subtract it from both sides, we're going to be left with y equals a negative 2x plus 2. Okay, they're not like terms, so we can't subtract them. But now we're in slope-intercept form, so we can pick out our slope. Remember, y equals m. M is our slope. So we have a slope of negative 2. And our y-intercept is 2. Remember, y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So when we go to graph this, we graph it right here. Our y-intercept, remember our y-axis is the vertical axis. We're going to go up 2 on that y-axis and plot a point because we saw our y-intercept, it intercepts the y-axis at 2. Okay, now we know our slope is a negative 2. And we remember our slope, we can rewrite that as negative 2 over 1. Okay, those are the same. Our slope is the change in our y-axis over our change in our x-axis. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this slope to find another point on our graph. And that's going to help us graph this line. Okay, let's see. Negative 2 is our change in our y. Y is up and down, so let's go down 2. And we're going to go right 1 because it's a positive 1. So we know there's another point on our graph that's right here. Okay, we went down 2, negative 2, change in y. And we went right 1, which is our change in our x. Now we can just graph our line. So connect our dots there. Draw a line through it. It says identify the x-intercept. Well, look here. Okay, it goes through our x-axis, which is our horizontal axis, at 1. So our x-intercept is going to be 1. Okay, so we graphed the line, identified the x-intercept, we covered everything. All right, now that you've finished up with your notes, turn to the extra practice in your student journals. on page 83. Okay, and we want you to do these 4 problems. We'll check them tomorrow in class. Okay, do your best on these and come to class prepared. Have a great rest of your night.